the 5% and the 7. The 7 is getting us awfully close to our competitors. This gap has been there forever, but we're increased, with this increase, we're getting really close to closing that gap, and that's our goal. We want to keep moving until we get to the top of that list. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you folks for all your continued support. I tell people this all the time. I have been around this business for 30 plus years, and I've always worked with people who care about education and are dedicated to it, but I've never worked with a group any more so than you folks. You're serious about it. You roll up your sleeves and get to work when it comes to taking care of the kids in this community, and we very much appreciate it, so thank you.
Okay, school board members, anybody? Any comments? Okay, let me just ask a couple of questions, Artie. You and I have talked about this, the blind spot of the camera on the primary school. And I think you told me that you were looking at that and would support that with the cameras and whatever you need to take care of that blind spot.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. We did a full audit of all of our cameras. We did, in fact, note that there is a slight area facing the baseball field that needs some adjustment, and that's being done as we speak. There's also, we're in a continual process of upgrading our cameras. We started many years ago in Poquoson adding cameras. We presented at our school board meeting this past month. The next phase of upgrading will include another 20-some, almost 30 cameras in addition, and all of our campuses. So this is an ongoing process, but we will be without blind spots. The other thing to add that I think is important when we're talking about school safety and security, we're one of very few school divisions where all of our cameras are accessible by members of the Poquoson Police Department 24 hours a day. It's not just our staff watching cameras. Our police force is also watching the cameras, and they're incredible partners with us. They walk our campuses regularly and vet all of our procedures and making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep all of our kids and staff safe.
You do a great job. One other question. Teacher supplies. And it comes from, this comes from teachers. Do you have in the budget the dollars that are needed to make those supplies a reality? For instance, some of the calls are, why do teachers have to pay for their supplies?
That's a very good point. And we start this budget process by asking teachers what they need first. And everything that the teachers have requested is in this budget. And there are like 3 exceptions, and those exceptions are detailed programs that actually we have to wait until the new state standards for literacy come out. When those standards are complete, then we'll go through. A few teachers asked for some specific materials associated with literacy, and we were cautioned by VDOE to hold out on purchasing those materials until the new standards come out. Those few exceptions, all of the teacher material requests are in this budget.
Great. All right.
You know, way back, copy paper, about March, April timeframe, was a big deal for teachers, and I haven't heard that in a long time, so I guess that's solved.
We spend a lot of money in copy paper, and we also have offset that with the new technology that also allows a lot of things that used to be copied and handed out to be replaced with the new tools that we purchased and upgrade and maintain. So very good point.
Used to we had a number where what we spent per student compared to everybody else in the state, and we were down close to the bottom of expenditures, but our output as far as people going to colleges and military and other things was way up at the top, which is, you know, a really good ratio. Are we still somewhere thereabouts?
It's almost exactly the same. Yep, we outperform most folks compared to dollars spent. Absolutely.
Good.
So, Council?
I had a question. Thank you for the answers. I had written some questions regarding the remedial expenditures and gifted and talented. And got the answers back, which is pretty much I expected. I just didn't know. I mean, it was there, just couldn't see it. I also applaud, as you heard me, probably read when I wrote back, is the Aviation Academy. I've been over there on tours. I actually did a recruiting when I worked for what is now Virginia Peninsula Community College, and it's just a fantastic thing. I don't know if it's in that same facility anymore, but just a great thing. I mean, anybody that thinks that there's teaching students how to work on airplanes is completely wrong. Everything in the aviation and a pretty heavy-duty math regimen for those students. So they're ready to go off to like a management courses in college. I mean, it's not like we're teaching them how to push airplanes around. That's great stuff. And you said we have a dozen there. That's just great. The one thing I listened to your presentation to the school board the other night, and you talked about something that kind of piqued my interest with regard to student populations, particularly in the primary school, that there may be some, depending on how many show up on the first day and progress. Is there something we should be anticipating as a council for funds needed, you know, if that number is higher than we expect?
Yes, that's a very good point, Councilman Fye, and timely. We made as you know, a report to our board this past meeting. We've been talking about it for several months now, but we just were in receipt of the Weldon Cooper demographic study for us, which yields over 300 students over the next 5 years, primarily from the Legacy Project, but also 2 other smaller projects in Poquoson. And we are in an unusual situation in the state of Virginia, according to this projection. We are growing, and most of the school divisions in the state are flat or heading in the other direction, population-wise. So those are all good problems to have, but and we're in great shape in all 3 of our other schools, with the exception of the primary school. The primary school is bursting at the seams, so to speak. So we are going to have to start looking. Our board is in a work session next month, going to be taking up possible short-term and long-term solutions, perhaps moving some programs that are housed in the primary school to the elementary school where we have more capacity. But we'll be coming to you folks after those workshops to talk about the next steps and maybe look at some long-range planning for future growth at our other campuses. We realize the primary school doesn't really have room to grow on that campus, so we'll have to look at other locations. But we are going to need to do something if those projections are true. They're looking at as many as 100 students in the next 4 or 5 years in that building, and there isn't capacity. So very good question. The numbers show up right at over 300 over the next 3 years, give or take a few. And like I said, we're in good shape at the other 3 schools, but the primary school will be crowded.
Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
What, if anything, are you guys doing about pay compression, the salaries and retention pay for people that have been there quite a while?
Very good question. That's our next step. Over the last 3 budgets, the state of Virginia has been giving significant pay increases over the SOQ. I couldn't think of it for a moment. And those numbers cause us to come to you folks and ask for sizable dollars in match, because the state increases only pay about half. So when we start looking at those numbers and our ask, we decided to put off for the past 3 years step increases. But the way to do this is, as you indicated, a compression schedule. And so in the next year's budget cycle, we'll be coming to you folks with some suggestions on how to reinstitute that. If you'll recall, back in the recession in 10 or 11, those step increases were frozen in many places, and it took years for school divisions to have the finances to reinstitute those steps. And now it's time for us to start getting serious about that. It would be very costly to come back in 1 year and ask for a complete step increase. But the compression steps is, I think, a feasible way to do that. So we'll be back to this council next year talking about that. We decided to put all of our eggs in the 5%, 6%, and now perhaps 7% basket. rather than address the compression, because we were quite confident that we couldn't do both.
Another question, do you have enough bus drivers?
We do, actually,
Okay.
and we're one of very few school divisions. When I'm at meetings with my colleagues around, it's one of the topics that comes up every time. You know, what are we doing about getting bus drivers? There's a need all around the country, actually. And, but we're in good shape in Poquoson. We actually have, we're at capacity, and we have a couple of spare drivers.
Okay.
So we're in good shape.
Good. Last question. Back years ago, when I started coming to council about SROs, I did a lot of research and realized that it's a multi-layered approach when you're talking about school safety, right? So you have administration, you have SROs, but many schools also offer security officers. Are there any plans in the future to discuss that, or hopefully maybe get some? What are your thoughts on that?
Great question, and there was a grant. We apply for every grant that comes across our desk that we qualify for. A lot of grants have a requirement to have a high level of economically disadvantaged children, which we do not. So many of those grants we don't qualify to apply for. But a lot of the safety and security grants don't have that requirement, and we have just applied for one that would include security officers. If it happens, we'll be coming to our board and city council to get approval for that. But we did apply for a grant a couple of months ago, a month and a half ago, that would include security officers. So it is something that's.
One or more than one? I'm just curious.
So do we ask for one at each school? It would be, great if we get that. Chances are that won't happen, but, you can start somewhere. Of course, we would start at our high school and work down.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Janet?
Yeah, just real quick on one of your slides, the one where you showed the 7% for us and 5% for everybody else, and it kind of got us in line. So the 7%, is that from the state or what we're hoping from the state? But would all those other jurisdictions also get 7, which would then keep us?
Good question.
We wouldn't jump up.
That's a
if
very,
they
very
all get
good
7%.
question, and we show this slide, and I borrowed it from Dr. Parrish, my predecessor. She was showing a similar slide for years. It's just a way to talk about where we land. We took the budgets from all the other school divisions around us that are all landed at 5. There's talk that even if the state comes back with 7, some of those school divisions will continue to stay at 5. And that's what we're hearing. We are having conversations with our colleagues around. It is a moving target, and the challenge is we won't know until perhaps June. We showed this slide with both, just so you could see the 7 does put us very close. And if Gloucester lands on the 5, and that's what's currently in their budget, and York stay at 5, we're closing that gap. But they could always come back and ask their governing body to increase as well. It's a heavy lift, as you all well know, because coming up with the other half of that amount of money is not easy.
Any other questions? Anything from the school?
I'll add something. I just want to say thank you all for the support. We greatly appreciate it every year.
Well, we thank you guys for all that you do for our children. A lot going on in our schools, and the vast majority of it is really good. Our phone calls dealing with education, 100%. Mamas and daddies are interested in what their children are doing. And I think you're making our schools not only well-known throughout the Commonwealth, but you're doing it with a lot of gusto, and I personally appreciate that, and I know council does. Glad you're there. Appreciate the job you do. Okay, no other questions, we're done.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Bit of a city.
we update you on things that have changed since we put the budget together. As you know, the budget is a point-in-time document based on a lot of estimates and guesstimates at times. And sometimes we'll have a late bill change from the jail or the juvenile detention center or a number of places. This year, strange to report that we have no changes. That is in part because the General Assembly has not completed its work. And there may be some, hopefully minor things on the other end of that. But at this point, staff has no sort of administrative changes to share with you. I am aware that Councilwoman Andrews has something she'd like to address with you, but other than that, staff has nothing.
Okay. Jen?
You already know, because I talked to
I
you
do know.
about this on
I
the
do know.
on the 12th. You and I talked on the 12th, and then I talked to you on the 12th, too, right? And then I talked to everybody else today. So about 5 years ago, maybe, the Poquoson Museum came and did a great presentation to us about their plans for the future and how they were going to work toward becoming self-funded, and so that they didn't have to rely on money from the city. And I've been the liaison for that board, and that has not come to fruition. And, the goal was so that they could start earning money and be self-supporting, and we could cut back on what we gave. That hasn't happened. And so I wanted to propose that we reduce or move what we give to them by $2,000 a year the next 3 years, as an incentive to, follow through with that program, and in 5 years. And also, that is one of the largest amounts. We used to give zero to them, and then we jumped it up to about $11,000. And there's only one other organization, cause, that we give that amount of money to, which is a little bit greater. And I just think with the budgetary needs that we have, that we need to start looking at volunteer groups like this, and I absolutely think that they deserve money. I just don't know that we should be giving in those large quantities, and I feel like it should be more in the $5,000 range. And, I'm privy to, and I don't know if I can say it publicly, so I won't, but I am privy to their budget and their bank accounts, and I don't feel like a $2,000 reduction a year for the next 3 years would be a hardship on them based on what they have in their account. And they have the opportunity, they have a great piece of property. They have the ability to use that property to generate income, I think, in ways that they have not been doing, to make up that small difference.
Okay.
And I've talked to everybody, here at council about it, so
And I've talked to everybody too. And I
we have a
think,
discussion
I
about
think we
it.
have conflicting comments from city council. The comments that you got and the comments that I've got are not nearly the same. I think what Janice is looking for is a consensus. If that's something that council wants to do, that we have to have four people to agree to do that. I told Janice today, and those of you that I've talked to, I think it was Allison was the last person I talked to today, that I wouldn't support that. And first of all, and I don't think anybody here will disagree with this, I do my very best to make sure that city council knows as much as I know going to any meeting, so that nothing, hits you from behind. I think that's part of my job. I think that's what I ought to do. But to find out at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon that, this is going to be proposed, that 4 members of council have already been talked to, and they've agreed, I felt like that was pretty much slap in the face, quite honestly. I talked with Kerry, Bud and I had a brief conversation. I think I talked to everybody here. I'll do what council wants to do. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think, number one, you're going to alienate those folks who dump a lot of money into that museum. And it won't take long. It won't take long for that to get on the street. I think I told Keith this morning, it won't take him long to hear it. I just don't think this is a clean way to do it. If we want to know how the museum is spending their money, then I think that's a fair question. and we can certainly request that of them. But I don't think this is the way to go. And so, I've expressed that to members of council, but if there are 4 people here, we get a consensus, and Randy can make the adjustment. Am I right about that? And
If 4 people say yes, make the adjustment in the final budget document, we will amend the document that you will see on May the 8th to reflect the consensus, if there is one, this evening.
Well, I just wanted to just respectfully point out that this wasn't a last-minute thing today. I called you on the 12th, and you and I spoke on the 12th about this right after the meeting, because I mentioned it actually in our last meeting. I said, there's a budget, how do we go about
You
the
absolutely
budget?
did talk to me after the meeting.
And you and I you were gonna talk to the museum folks, I was gonna talk to council, we were gonna reconvene. So today was that, in my mind, the reconvenement, that this was planned from that point. So I don't feel like I blindsided you. I'm sorry if you feel like that.
You have
'cause-
4 other members, you have 4 members of council that evidently agreed with you. And when I spoke with those folks today, for some reason, their attitude toward this suggestion had changed. And, I'm just expressing to council the way I feel about it.
It's good that we discuss it, so we can hear how everybody
Yeah,
feels
oh,
about it.
sure, but I'm gonna finish what I gotta say before I let you do that. It reminds me, quite frankly, of an ambush. You and I did talk after, Jana, that's exactly right, we did talk after the meeting, you did express that concern. And I don't know if I told you then, but I certainly have told you since then, that I couldn't support that, not the way that's gonna be done. Now, you wanna look at next year's budget and have council and the museum board sit down and come up with a number, I'm all about that. But right here at budget time, we'll be adopting the budget here shortly, next May something. Yeah, I think it's the wrong time, I don't think it's clean at all, I just don't.
I wish we would have had a budget retreat this year like we have in previous years. That's normally, we have a budget retreat before this process and kind of talk about this stuff, but we didn't. So now's the time when we do it, since we didn't have a budget retreat.
I don't think anybody, you may have, but I don't think anybody on this council's asked me about a retreat.
No, we didn't, but I think that's
So
something.
what we need to
should-
know now is, what do you want to do? Because we're. Go ahead, bud.
I'll just make my comments. That Today's the first day I've heard of this, okay? And Jan and I had words, and I remember the presentation that was made that where they were going to do different programs and so forth and try to become self-sufficient, okay? And it was really good presentation. It was made back, again, was it 5 years ago? Okay? And that's good, okay? And it would be good for them to continue to work to be to where they're self-sufficient. But it's my understanding that they set on a fairly good budget, okay? And I'm not ready to just go ahead and make a wholesale change. I think, there was a plan presented some time ago. Where do we stand in that plan, and what is actually being done? What's gonna happen by when sometime in the future? And I'd like to hear those comments before I decided I was gonna make a change.
What is the plan? I don't know what the plan is.
Paul presented a plan to us of what they were gonna do, and they're gonna try to
Oh,
become
okay.
self-sufficient. They're
Okay.
gonna apply for grants,
That was
and
before my
find-
time.
That was before your time.
Find out what grants they've applied
but
for, which ones they're going to apply for, and find out where they stand, so we know when we can start cutting back that budget, if we can. And so I wouldn't want to make a change right now, but I'd like to know, where do they stand financially, and how they're going to go about it,
Okay.
and then we plan for that.
If we give them an opportunity to speak on the audience for visitors.
Yeah.
And not a long, drawn-out discussion. 3 minutes. Paul, we can get it in 3 minutes. Keith?
We talked, you and I talked twice on the 12th, and we also talked today. I had the question because a constituent came to me right after I got on the council and was asking a question. So I had asked the finance director and received the FY22 and the FY23 budget requests from the museum. But I also asked a question, I go, how close did they get to meeting that? And I never heard back. I've been down to the museum, walked the trail several times. took my wife down there last October, November timeframe, and it was the first time that the museum was open. Times I'd been by there. And I got a nice tour, bought the book, read the book. It's great stuff. For those of us that moved several times in their childhood and didn't have a hometown, I kind of envy the people that lived here all that time and put the museum together, and I'm a fan of museums. But I'm not a fan of putting money into it, and according to other records we had here, we were given $30,000 back in 2020 and 2021 for a place that's only open 4 hours a week. And when we talked about the $2,000 reduction, I suggested, because I was down there on the 12th when we talked, I was talking with the master gardeners that were doing the garden. They were getting ready for their open house, and I went back on the open house date and observed all the, and it appears that most of the people that are attracted to that are attracted, A, to the trail, and B, enjoy the garden there. The museum is just a building they have to walk or drive past to park, which is not a good thing. And unless there's some kind of plan to make it more than a place to walk by and only open on Saturdays, formally on Sundays for 4 hours a week, as an investment, it's not great. It needs to be better. And I would take the $2,000, give it to the master gardeners, and improve their lot where it appears to be attracting people. And then the museum can hopefully take off of that success that the garden offers. My
Okay.
thought.
All right. David?
I do not support reducing the fees in the manner. I think it's something that we should have a specific discussion way at a later date, but to go about it this way tonight, I support that. I have a vested interest in the museum, and my wife, Teresa, and I are charter members of the museum. We were among the group of initial investors. With the points being made and the concerns being made, I think we could have a fruitful discussion and improve the process. But I'm not in favor of adjusting the budget this late in the process this year.
Pretty much agree with what Councilman Huck said. I think a museum is good, and I think it's a government function. I think it's a good thing to have in our city. I do think that they could do so much more with what they have available to them and could raise, a lot of money and maybe not be quite so dependent on our allocation. And maybe we could slowly back off of that allocation. But I haven't really had enough time to look into it and see what kind of, unintended consequences would be of doing something tonight. But I don't disagree with the idea that we do need to look at it.
Okay. Allison?
I think that it's really unfortunate that our tax dollars are subsidizing nonprofits. I run a nonprofit. I know what it's like to need money. And we had to apply for a grant to get flashlights. So applying for a grant to get basic needs for our officers, and we're giving money to nonprofits. I would never expect my nonprofit to be subsidized by the city, and I have spoken to people in my community, and quite frankly, they think our priorities are out of line. With that being said, I do support the museum, I support Paul's, I support all of our nonprofits, but we shouldn't be using tax dollars for it. And I was actually a little disappointed that it was only requested to reduce 2,000 over time, because our basic needs are not being met. And if our basic needs are not being met, then I don't feel like our money should go towards things like the museum. Quite frankly, yep.
All right, so,
I do want to add that I am a supporter of a museum. I have given my entire salary for the entire 6 years I've served to volunteer organizations in this city, including the museum and PAWS and every other organization. So I am not in support of the organizations that we have in the city. I've given my entire salary to them for 6 years. But I do think when somebody comes to us and says, here's a self-funding and not rely on you, I do think I've had 5 years to do that. And you know, as far as doing it now, this is when you do it. I mean, I don't want to wait till Randy does the final budget and it's final and then make an amendment to it. I thought it better to do it now than after everything's adopted and then move money around later. But if everybody else feels like we should have a discussion about it and do an amendment to the budget and request money be moved later, we can do that. I just thought it was better to do it now at the beginning.
I don't think there's anything wrong with what the way you've handled it at all. Let's just find out if we have a consensus for what the comments were, and that was moving $2,000 from the museum money and move it to Parks and Rec. Or whatever.
Somewhere.
But I mean, that's what I heard. I'm not hearing David saying he agrees with it. I'm not hearing Bud say he agrees with it. I'm not hearing Kerry. I certainly don't agree with it. So I don't think and Keith would,
I would like to see something done with the money, like says, if the master gardeners, we're gonna get something out of it. You know, that's only $2,000. Some might say, that's a lot of money.
so you're in favor of moving money?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm counting 4 people that are not ready to do
Allison
that.
was 5.
Allison, no, she's on,
I don't,
Yeah.
no, I don't think we should be continuously giving tax dollars to nonprofits when our basic needs are not being met.
In favor of moving the money, and we have 3 who don't want to decide on it tonight, but want to have a discussion about it and look at moving it later. So I think if the majority doesn't want to move the money tonight, I would like to set up that session for us to discuss it.
that's fine.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with that. Okay, that it? Time to go back on TV.
this can be recycled. I read it.
Okay, good to go, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I apologize for the delay. We had some other business to take care of prior to starting this meeting, but we'll call the meeting to order and ask if you would stand, and Councilman Hucks will have our invocation and lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord Jesus, we stand in your presence tonight, grateful for the way of life that you've blessed us with. We're grateful for our Constitution, which we understand is written with divine inspiration. It guarantees us our unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As public servants, please bless us with your courage and fortitude to do all that we can to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution at all cost. So help us, God. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Davey. All right, let's move on to audience for visitors. I know that there are some folks here from the museum. Three of you, just one of you is going to speak. Okay, Paul?
Good evening, everyone. Sorry about my voice, though. It's one of those things. Anyway, I heard most of the comments that were made. I'm going to address some of those for you. But first I want to say is that we've appreciated the city's contribution to the museum. The museum is not only a nonprofit. This nonprofit is for everybody in the city. New York, California, whoever comes here can go to the museum at no charge. They can use the facilities 7 days a week, sunrise to sunset. We get calls sometimes when we're not open. Somebody visiting from out of town, they want to go to the museum. Well, me or one of the other board members will go down and open it up and take them through the museum. It's not about the money, per se. If you don't want to give us any money, we're just going to have to shut the door. There's no question about it. I've been the president for about 13 years, but I've been a board member since the inception of the museum. It's imperative that we continue to do what we do. Even though we had to stop opening up on Sunday, we're subject to the volunteers of this city to work when they want to work. We don't pay anybody to work. So we had to just stop having it open on Sunday. I know it's an inconvenience, but unfortunately, we just can't pull somebody off the street and say, oh, we want you to be a docent. People have to volunteer to do that. I have a lady in process right now going through a background check. We have to have a background check on everybody that works in the museum. It's one of those insurance things. I mean, if you're a child molester, you can't be a docent in a museum. It's a given fact. We're going to look out for people that come to the museum. They're going to be safe, number one. So the money that you give us keeps us from having to shut down a museum. If you take away $2,000 or $3,000, we're just going to have to close the door. We can't keep it open. We're this much every year from going under. I know it sounds bad, but we live on donations, charity, contributions from the general public. If we don't get that, we're not going to survive. And if you take away the money that you're giving to us now, we're not going to make it. We're that much from going under. And we do it because I put in money, they put in money, Manfred Freeman puts in money. It's not your money, it's their money. But they pay taxes here too, and a lot of taxes in some respects. We get donations from council members. I mean, Jenna has donated some of her councilman's salary in the past. So, you know, every year we go through the budget process. We have a spreadsheet here we give to the finance director. It shows every dime that you give us, where it went. And most of the time, we spend more than you give us. Past councils in this city has promised us they were going to help us no matter what. We're not asking for a lot of money. $10,000 or $11,000 is not a lot of money when you look at it. And if you're going to take it away from us and give it to another nonprofit, that doesn't make any sense to me. The Master Gardeners stay at the museum because we let them stay at the museum. We allowed them to come on the property from Mr. Wheeler's request. I granted that request, or our board granted that request. They're there because we allow them to be there. We appreciate their benefit to the museum and to the community at large. People go there to look at the flowers, obviously. We appreciate them going there because it adds more flexibility for us to work around them, to give them the opportunity to have events. We have events, so we work together. We try to work out any obstacles that come upon us and them. So we try to make sure that their events don't interfere with ours and ours don't interfere with theirs. So, you know, we'd like to be open every day, 7 days a week, but we just can't do it. We don't have volunteers to do it. And we're subject to the availability of people who are willing to come and stay in a museum and be a docent for 4 hours. And if we don't have it, we can't open. But the grounds are open. They're open 7 days a week, sunrise to sunset. There are thousands of people that come and walk that trail every day, every month, every year, thousands. I wish I could count them all, but I can't. They pay taxes here, and they do it because they know they got a place to go to be safe. You go to a museum to look at things they've never seen before. Or they may go looking at some stuff that some of their relatives may have donated. So I don't know what else I could say, you know.
Well, what we've said tonight, Paul, we're going to sit down as a council and talk about it. You guys heard it.
Appreciate your
So,
time.
okay, no problem. All righty. Is it Pizzella? I apologize, I'm probably ruining your name. What is it, sir? I said it right? Oh, great.
I actually thought y'all were gonna talk and then I was gonna, my voice too.
I'm
not contagious.
Try to get a little closer to the
I
mic
went to
for
the
us.
doctor today. I'm not contagious, just a sore throat, I guess sinuses or whatever. I was actually gonna, my discussions was about the, property taxes, but I thought y'all were gonna talk and then we were gonna talk. I didn't know that I talked.
Can you put
I
a mic
can't
up?
hear you.
I didn't know that I talk before y'all talk. My stuff was about the property tax.
Right, you
increase.
talk about anything you like.
Well, you don't want that. Well, I mean, if you want, basically from the get-go, I mean, I've been on meetings, I've been on boards and stuff like that, not city councils, but, I mean, I came in for the tail end of the education stuff. Teachers are, you know, my wife was a teacher, so I understand that. The stuff about the museum, I mean, I'm in favor with, it's still a nonprofit. Cities shouldn't be giving money to nonprofit, in my opinion. but you had, you were 3 against here, but the gentleman that is a charter member shouldn't get a vote. So to me, the get rid of it was 3 and the keep it was 2. He should withstand from his voting. I don't know how y'all do it. It's a vested interest to me. But y'all do whatever you want to do, I guess. But real estate tax increase, I got something in the mail saying 2.8%, then like 10%, and I know some people are smaller and I know some people are larger pending, but I'm watching street sweepers. You know, I was in favor for the dredging. You know, I've come to a couple meetings for that, and you know, when dredging basically we're not doing that or whatever like that, then all of a sudden I see street sweepers that I guess Poquoson bought, and come to my understanding we have more than one, loosening stuff up on the ground, and then the rainwater washing it all back in, filling our stuff up, and then we need to be dredged more. But then I see the little bushes, you know, talking about money and money and money, and now I see where you're I guess, trying to get it from, up in everyone's assessment. And then I see the little trees down With Creek. I'm a retired firefighter, and I see 2 guys, one in a rain jacket, pruning these little trees. And I mean, they probably spent thousands of dollars per tree probably so far. Buy another tree. I mean, it was only $50 maybe. I mean, it just, they're pruning them, they're spraying them, and it seems like every week or 2. So, I mean, basically, I hope we don't see a 2%, maybe that might be a cost of living, but I mean, I own a business too. And I mean, I would love to get money from the city, but that ain't gonna happen. But I mean, we couldn't increase, you know, as a business owner, I couldn't increase stuff 10%, you know, in a year and expect anyone to, one, like it or pay it, really. I mean, I understand we live here, so we gotta pay whatever, I guess, is voted on. But I can see, you know, if we got rid of, you know, street sweepers, or maybe looked at what actually we're spending the money on now, I think maybe we could lower the increase that y'all are projecting on mine. I don't know about everyone else's. That's all I got.
Okay, thanks, sir. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to approval of a minutes. We have 2 sessions, our work session, April 10th, and a regular session, April 10th as well.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the work session, April the 10th, 23.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made and seconded that we adopt the work session minutes and our regular session minutes. Any concerns, comments, questions about those? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Southall,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilwoman Fox.
Aye.
Councilman Five.
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a
Okay, thanks,
vote of
Kim.
7-0.
Thank you, ma'am. Item E, there are 2 public hearings.
We need a motion on the regular session.
I thought we did it with both of them. I thought you did both of them at that time.
I didn't, I could have, but I didn't.
Okay, we'll
Okay, I move we approve the regular session dated April the 10th, 23.
okay.
Second.
All right, Ms. Kim?
Councilwoman Fox.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilman Five.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to the 2 public hearings. The first one is the proposed FY 2024 annual financial plan. First reading, it is a public hearing. Randy, any comments before we open the public hearing?
Mr. Members, Council, Mr. Mayor, you'll recall at your last meeting, we did a detailed presentation. We're here always to answer questions if council have them, but we're not anticipating, unless you requested, a new presentation of essentially the second time of the thing that we presented at the last meeting.
Okay. Any questions, any comments? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone in our audience that would like to address the annual financial plan? Okay, I don't see anybody, so we'll close the public hearing and move on. The second public hearing is the proposed FY 2024 real property tax rate. That's the first reading as well, Randy.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, under Virginia law, when you have a real property reassessment and the cumulative increase of that is 2% or higher, you're required by code to have a separate hearing on the property tax element of that. So it's affords a second opportunity for people to speak not only to the budget generally, but in this hearing to speak to the tax rate specifically.
All right, let's open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the real property tax rate? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing. There's no action required. We'll move to new business. It's a resolution making an appointment to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Someone have a name and a motion? Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I propose a resolution making an appointment to the Poquoson Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with the name Robert B. Chiara Jr., listed with, in the at-large position, whose term will expire March 31st, 2026.
Okay,
Mayor, I second the motion, and just like to add that what we're doing was removing Robert. He had moved from one precinct to the next, and there was an opening in an at-large position, so the board can really use his expertise. He's been on the board for over 20 years.
Okay.
Provides that, a lot of new members there, so just make him an at-large member.
okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any concerns, comments, any questions? If not, Ms. Kim?
Councilwoman Andrews?
Aye.
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks?
Aye.
Councilwoman Fox?
Aye.
Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thanks, Kim. Item 2 on the new business is a resolution directing that public notice be given of council's intent to receive bids for the sale of publicly owned property located within the unimproved portion of .77 acres located in the middle of the Legacy community. Randy?
Tanya, all right. We attempted to be able to show this graphic. Members of council, you will recall the process to sell a piece of publicly owned property is purposely methodical. And in our case, what the resolution before you this evening is to direct staff to provide public notice to receive sealed bids for a small piece of property, approximately 3/4 of an acre, that is literally located inside the general footprint of the Legacy development, with portions of which on both sides of the trail and the ditch system. The way the process works is we, with your consent, initiate the public bid process. So we will, assuming that you approve it, we will receive public bids we will receive public bids prior to the next meeting, your next meeting, which is May the 8th. And then the clerk, during the meeting, during a public hearing, will open and read each of the bids. Council then typically takes that under advisement, and we have by custom waited at least 2 weeks to have further deliberation on that, because the members of the public that might have an interest or comment, they're probably not sitting here when that bid is read, and to make sure that they had enough time. It's the methodical process. So it's really a 3-step process. This is the first step. At your next meeting, we will take and formally open and read aloud during the public hearing the sealed bids, and then if council is desirous of considering them at all, the process of consideration would be the meeting after that. So it's 3 consecutive meetings.
Okay. Well done.
And we do have the, back up there, just in case people are interested specifically where it is. And if that doesn't help you, and we can help better, if you'll contact either the city manager's office or the community development office, we can show you larger maps to help you understand where that is.
Okay,
That's all I have.
any questions right now? Okay, do we have a motion for the resolution?
Mr. Mayor, I propose a resolution directing the public notice be given to council's intent to receive bids for the sale of publicly owned property located within the unimproved portion of 7/100 acres. I'm sorry, that's 7/100 acres located in the middle of the Legacy community.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded, to adopt the resolutions. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, Ms. Kim?
Councilman Fye?
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews?
Aye.
Councilwoman Fox?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Freeman? Councilman Southall?
Aye.
Councilman Hucks? Mayor Hessel?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thanks, Kim. Comments, city manager?
Nothing this evening, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any council directives, David?
Thank you, Gordon. I have no comment.
Okay.
I do.
Allison?
I do. I prepared a letter for you, sir, and I'm just going to read it for the public. Mayor Helsel, I would like to express my deepest gratitude for your support of me as a member of Poquoson City Council. Since November 2022, you have been welcoming, supportive, receptive, and kind. During my short tenure, I have gained a tremendous insight into local government due to your leadership. Your ability to provision council members with awareness and understanding of issues within our community has been sincerely appreciated. Therefore, it is with deep sadness and regret I will no longer be able to serve the citizens of Poquoson as a council member effective May 7th, 2023. I have accepted a new position, and this career path will not support involvement in local government. In addition to your leadership, Mr. Wheeler, members of council, and city staff made the transition from councilwoman-elect to council member smooth and painless. It has been an honor and privilege to participate in discussions and make decisions which directly impact the community. There are still many issues our community members and city employees face and have recently brought forward. These issues include a lack of resources, high property taxes, a lack of recreational activities and spaces, dated recreational spaces, employee training needs, employee pay compression, school safety, water levels, CRS flood rating, etc. I recognize there are ongoing discussions about these listed issues, but in an effort to remain transparent, I must relay these issues publicly. I also recognize that the community does not always feel informed, and city officials can do better about bringing information forward. It has been made clear to me during meetings that every council member has a genuine love for our community, takes issues seriously, and members work together to ensure the needs of the public are met. Each member is thoughtful and considerate in their approach to solutions. Although I may not be in a council member seat, I remain determined to educate myself on agenda matters and will continue to vocalize community concerns. While we may not always agree on the best way forward, I know we will always be able to find common ground through through our love for Poquoson and its citizens.
Thank you, Allison. She and I had this discussion this afternoon, and I've not discussed it with members of council. We're really going to miss you. We're really going to miss you. I think, you came to this council prepared to serve the citizens of this community, and you've done that in just a marvelous way. Certainly wish you the best in your new venture. Totally understand family and jobs come first, and that's what you're doing. You're putting your family first. And I think council can say what they want to say, but I will miss you. In the conversations that you've made a real effort. You call me and talk to me about things that concerned you, and I felt very comfortable being able to do that with you as well. So the very best to you and your family. Thank you so much. Keith?
Yeah, it's hard to follow up on that one. Just wanted to let you know, I did visit the Learning Garden that the open house they had on the 15th of April, and those folks down there do an amazing job. It's a great thing. If you haven't been down there, I recommend everybody go down to the Learning Garden and the museum. Also, tomorrow morning, food pantry giveaway will be at 8:30 at the municipal building parking lot. The host for this month will be Tabernacle United Methodist Church and St. Timothy's Anglican Church. Assuming the Anglican Methodists get along, we'll be fine.
Okay. Bud?
Yes, first I'd like to thank Mr. Paul Whitlow and Mr. Vasella for being here tonight to pay attention to the city government and make their comments known publicly. I'd like to thank everyone else who's attended this meeting tonight, and I'd like to thank those at home who tune in and pay attention to the city government. I'd also like to state publicly that I dearly love this city. And if I wanted to play tongue-in-cheek games and say, you know what, we have 3 precincts in the city, but I think Central Precinct's better, I'd play a game with every one of them, okay? And I would defend the Central Precinct, okay, because I like them a lot, okay? I like all the city, but I'll defend the Central Precinct. But we have 2 different committees and boards that need community help. And it seems like to me, Eastern and Western precincts get a lot more candidates than the Central Precinct, okay? So I'd like to see people from the West, on the Central Precinct step up, okay? We have a Library Advisory Board needs people. We have a Parks and Rec Board that needs people. And the Central Precinct needs to step up and play their part. So please volunteer. We have boards and committees that need help. Help your city and help yourselves and volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch. Anna?
Thank you, Bud, for those comments. I just wanted to say I'm going to miss Allison. Oh my gosh, it's been so great having 2 females on the board, which, you know, has never happened before. So I'm really sad that you were forced to do your job and serving, which I know you hate too.
Sad about that too, Jana. I am very sad. I wanted to stay.
It's a hard position to be put in. But I also wanted to, you know, make some more comments about the museum. Some of the things that Mr. Whitlock said, I greatly respect, but, you know, $11,000 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. If you talk to our firemen. I know in the grand scheme of $1 million budget, it is not, but $11,000 is a lot of money. And also wanted to point out that nobody, including me, was suggesting that dollars away. That it wasn't my intent. I've never said that was my intent. And, you know, it was just that I want to see that plan that was given to us 5 years ago that said, here are all the things that we're going to do to start making money for the museum. And I don't believe, knowing the financial situation, that $2,000 would shut down the that's not true. And if it would, then that's even more of a reason to do that fundraising in that 5-year plan. And I do see your point about not giving it to a nonprofit. I think we have lots of city agencies that could use some funds. And I was on right after, and, you know, I don't think we ever promise anybody, no matter what, we will always. I don't think as a council we can actually even say that to anybody. You know, that's to make a promise that you will get this money for all time. And did want to point out, too, that I think I don't know what the amount was, Randy, maybe you remember, but the city did pay off the loan on that land that was several hundred. A lot of money to the museum, a lot of money.
Okay, Carrie?
I can't follow up much on what you said about Allison, but we are going to miss you, and we really hate to see you go. But as Jana said, we understand that you have a wonderful job opportunity, and we don't blame you for jumping on that, but we will miss you here.
All right. Anything else? If not, we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Second.
All right, motion made, second, we adjourn. Ms. Kemp?
Vice Mayor Freeman.
Aye.
Councilwoman Andrews.
Aye.
Councilman Southall.
Aye.
Councilman Fine.
Aye.
Councilman Hucks.
Aye.
Councilwoman Fox.
Aye.
Mayor Hessel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right.